Yeah, all right, fishing friends, now that we're out on the water, how do you fish this rig? Well, first, what do you fish it on? I always like to fish my weighted Wacky rigs on a spinning setup. I go with a 7-foot medium. You could go to a 7-foot medium light, or whatever length is comfortable for you, but I would say a medium light or a medium. Remember, you've got a small wire hook. You don't need a whole lot of power to drive that. It's like a needle. I choose a 2,000 or 3,000 size spinning reel. It's a really good size for a finesse application like this. I would suggest a 15 to 20 pound braided main line. That braid adds nice sensitivity to this, and you want to have a lot of sensitivity on these little finesse bites, and I go with the leader, usually an 8 to 10 pound fluorocarbon or copolymer leader. Once you get that all set up, you're ready to fish. All right, so the question really becomes, when do you fish this? Well, I honestly usually pull this out when the fishing gets a little bit more tough. A bright overcast day when you're fishing little shade pockets, when you're fishing isolated pieces of cover, that's when I go for this. Got him. I knew there was a little 1-pounder in there. Polarized glasses and switching to the finesse. All right. First fish of the day. He is no toad, not a toad by any means, but we slowed down, located the fish. Look at that, number 1 on the day. That's not the only time you can fish this. If you enjoy finesse fishing, or if you're trying to fill a limit, or you're just out to try to catch a number of fish, you're in a friendly little tournament with a buddy, throw on the weighted Wacky rig. This thing catches fish. Okay, I am not seeing the, oh, there we go. There's a bass, just as I was saying. I am not seeing the fish I'm wanting to. I moved it a little bit faster. Don't fin me. Moved a little bit faster than that little guy took it. All right, 2 for the day on the finesse bite. These aren't big, but hey, this beats staying home, right? But instead of coming out here with a big, huge spinner bait, something big and crazy, see a little fish, just downsize. Downsize to a little Wacky ring fry like this. Again, this is the Grandebass Rattlesnake. Downsize, go a little bit more finessey. But enough of all that talk. Where do you fish it? Well, I like isolated pieces of cover. I like to be strategic with this because you're not using a big search bait. So it's not like a chatterbait or a spinner bait, a square bill. I can't just keep making tons of casts and cover a huge amount of water. So I like to go to isolated pieces of cover. I've got a few little grass mats out here. We're going to try to hit these. I've got a log right here that goes out in the water. Hit that. I'm going to be selective with this. Usually I've got a search bait that I pair with this. I try to use this bait, try to find as many spots as I can where the fish are, and then I can go back through after I've fished it with my power baits, my chatter baits, square bills, whatever it is, and follow back up with a finesse bait. This is a great way to get those other fish that just weren't as aggressive, but you can go back up and clean up. There we go, first one of the night. It's a decent fish. So what were we doing there? Going up this side because this side is now all in the shade. Yes, finesse in the shade. So this guy looks like he's hooked pretty good, keeping that rod bent. Woo, don't want to bust that line. Finally got on a fish. That's a solid little fish. 1.5 pounds probably. We'll take that little guy. So let's toss this baby out, and I'll show you how I fish it. Toss it out. Now you can make long casts, short casts. Again, I'm going to try to isolate these pieces of cover. I'm going to let it sink. Remember, it's going to go quicker than your standard weightless Wacky rig, with just a stick bait or something, because I've got the weight on here. So throw it out. I'm going to let it sink. Now from here, I'm just going to give it quick pops. Pop, pop, pop. I'm going to watch my line. It's very important to watch your line on this technique. Pop, pop, pop. Let that sink. Most of the time, I would say 9 out of 10 times, they're going to hit this bait on the fall. You pop, 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 it falls down again, or that initial throw, that's when they're going to be hitting this bait. So you want to pay extra close attention on that initial cast. Watch your line, watch your line, watch for any ticks or bumps on the line while it's falling. Let it fall on slack line. You don't want to interrupt it. You don't want to, remember, engage that spool and have it pendulum back to me. Toss it out, pop, 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 and let it sink. There's one. All right, had to get right over that grass edge. The weighted Wacky rig. Little pounder. Just a little fella. Threw my worm off. Punk. He got all over him. He's got all kinds of gross stuff on him. That little fella. Eh? Okay. First one over here, just a little guy. Let's see if we can find his big brother. All right, that little turd took my worm, so I'm going to show you exactly how I rig this. I take this Grandebass Rattlesnake. Notice how it goes in there really easy. You just push it in, Go about halfway like that. I'm gonna get 2 rings. 1, 2. Both those are gonna go on right about in the middle of the bait, like so. And again, I'll show you the little trick that I showed you in the first video. If you didn't watch that one, check that out. I'll have that linked up at the top. But how to get these O-rings to cross over. So you take your hook like so, bring it in your first O-ring, just like that. I'm gonna back my hook out just a little bit, take it over that second O-ring and in. You'll see what that does is creates an X right there for you. So you don't have to worry about getting those all lined up nice and pretty. Just put them next to each other and do that little hook trick. How do you set the hook with a rig like this? Well, with the spinning rod and any sort of light wire hook, a lot of people tell you, you don't really need to set the hook, you just reel into them. I do it just a little tad different, and it's really the same thing, but I just use a little bit different terminology. I call it the bend of the rod set. So really all I'm doing is pulling up enough to get my rod, you can see here, go into that bend. I'm not trying to set the hook hard. I'm not trying to drive the hook. I'm just trying to get that rod to where it bends and flexes into that fish where it goes nice and tight on them. And then I'm gonna start reeling in. I do believe you wanna still pull up into them and set that hook a little bit. It's not just gonna be you feel a bite and just start reeling. And that's just me. I think that it is important to pull just to get that penetration. And then once you get that penetration, you don't need to do anything crazy and no super hard, crazy hook sets. I'm just gonna keep reeling into them. Once I feel that that hook has penetrated their mouth, then I'm just gonna start reeling. But I think it is important to still take your rod and lift up on them, lift up and pull into it, and then start reeling. Nothing hard, nothing crazy. It's just gonna be a pull into them and start reeling. Now, if you're beginners with a spinning rod like this, if you're fishing real light tackle, 15-pound braid to a 6 or 8 pound leader, it's important that you have your drag set as well. I can't tell you what the perfect drag set is. It's a little bit different for everybody, but I like it so when I set that hook, when I go into that rod bend and pull up on the fish, it might click just a little bit. Usually I don't even want it to really go much. If I pull up into them and it doesn't go, they have to make a, kind of a hard surge, and that's when my drag is gonna kick in and they're gonna start to pull away a little bit. But I just want that drag to go nice and easy. When they pull, you just want to hear a nice, when they pull really hard. But when I set that hook and pull up, I don't want it to be so light that I do that and I can't get any penetration because my drag's set so low that it just pulls and the hook doesn't actually even penetrate their mouth. Go a little off to the side over there by that grass. There's trees overhanging and such. See if we've got any fish. There's one. So I'm just gonna pull up into him. Just like that. Pull up, and then I'm gonna start reeling. Felt him on there. See how my drag's just little clicking? He was making a little run there. Felt him back up in there, pulled up into him, and started reeling. Ooh, he's pulling a little bit more. Now see, this is why I don't go with super, super tiny thin line. And you don't ever want them to get you up in here and then be out of luck. So I'm just gonna keep slowly pulling this fish. What is that bug trying to fly up in my face? Pulled a little bit of drag there. Easy, fella. All right, let's see if we can get him. All right, got him. Look at that. That's personally why I don't run 6-pound line here, just in case I get somewhere like that. Fishing along the grass line, found that little fella. Of course, he's nothing big, but oftentimes, wow, how about that release? Oftentimes that's what you gotta do. You gotta wade through those little guys, try to find some fish. Once you find those concentrations, it'll pick up.